Timberlake, League & Brooks, which pays an advertising fee to this station.
This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight it's Ask Us Anything night. So call in and ask your questions on any legal topic, whether it's maybe you've had a car accident, maybe you're thinking about a change in a divorce situation or a custody situation. Maybe you've been injured by a product that you bought. Call in. You can be live on the air, 256-536-0077. Or you can text us your question to that same number. You can also email any legal question any day of the week. You send it to lawcall@waaytv.com. And when we get to a show that's on point, we pull some out. We've got some of those coming in already. We've got Heath Brooks here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. Good to have you here.
Good to be here. Ask us anything.
Ask us anything.
That's right.
You guys do personal injury cases.
We do.
So that's, give us the rundown. What does that include? And then we're going to show you some video because it fits right into
We do all
this.
kinds of cases involving folks that have been injured before by any reason. Medical malpractice, car wrecks, truck wrecks, slips and falls in stores, you name it, we handle it, you know, and then we handle anything involving insurance, really. I mean, you know, if you have to make an insurance claim for some reason, then those are generally the types of cases we're looking at.
We're going to get started with this video. So take a look at this. We pulled it off of YouTube. A kid walking down the roadway, bouncing the basketball. There's going to be a lot of basketball coming up later this month. But in this case, and we can't tell how old this child is, the ball hits the curb and then rolls over right into the scooter that loses control. Two people on that scooter. All right,
goodness.
when you're looking at that, what are you thinking? Does the age of the person who's bouncing the ball, does that make a difference?
You know, it does. It does. If you're a young kid and you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, then oftentimes, you know, the law presumes that you can't be negligent. But there's a couple of problems we've got here. The first is that what the law says you're supposed to do, if there is a sidewalk available, you're supposed to walk on the sidewalk. And this fella is not walking on the sidewalk. He's actually walking to the left side of the yellow line, which is a problem. And then you still got to be in control of that basketball, I believe. And you know, I think that if you're not walking where you're supposed to be walking, and you're dribbling a basketball where you know you shouldn't be dribbling a basketball, that it is reasonable that you can lose control of it, and that can cause a wreck. And so I think these, you know, this motorcycle driver and his passenger probably have a claim against this fella. Problem's going to be is that, you know, if you're a kid, he looks like he's a young kid, probably not going to have a whole bunch of insurance money to help you out. You know, in that kind of scenario, when you're on a motorcycle, there's a question. Does your homeowner's insurance cover you because the fella who's dribbling the basketball is not in a car? Is it a situation where your car insurance is going to cover you? And so in those kind of scenarios, what I'm looking for is, first off, I'm looking for homeowners, car insurance, but then the people on the motorcycle. Do they have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage? And in the state of Alabama, with near 20% of our citizens not having car insurance, it's important to have that type of coverage. And that type of coverage, a lot of people waive it, but that type of coverage protects you in the event that you get hit by somebody that does not have any insurance coverage at all or doesn't have enough. Minimum in the state of Alabama is $25,000. So that gets eaten up real quick. I mean, I look at people that have a wreck on a motorcycle like that. That's a single hospital visit. I mean, these people can be devastatingly injured. $25,000 is gone as quick as I can snap my fingers, and then you may be looking at holding the bag of medical bills, lost wages, all your pain and suffering, all those things that you can make a claim for, and there's just not enough insurance. So, you know, I always say make sure to check your insurance policy that you have not waived underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage. Get as much as you can.
So with the video that we're watching, can you go after the child's parents? Would you figure you can go with something with the parents? Because you're right, he's not going to have any money.
Well, a couple of things there. Can you specifically go after the children's parents? Probably not in that scenario. But are you covered potentially under your parents' homeowner's insurance policy? Maybe so. So that's an avenue you need to look at.
Let's talk a little bit about hail damage. You're starting to see some things, some problems in our area, hail damage coverage that's not getting, insurance companies aren't paying.
Yeah, this is a good time to talk about this kind of situation that we're seeing a lot of. It's not just hail damage, it's also wind damage.
Okay.
So typically your insurance policy is your homeowner's insurance policy is gonna cover you in the event that your roof has hail damage or that you have wind damage on your house. Typically, they're not going to cover you for flood insurance if you don't have flood insurance, which is an extra charge. But what we're seeing more and more of is insurance companies getting information that there's been hail damage or wind damage, coming out and doing a bare bones look at a house and automatically denying the claim. And that's not sufficient enough. An insurance company has to do an appropriate investigation that is thorough to determine whether or not there is coverage that should be afforded to the homeowner. We're seeing that not happening.
Okay.
And I'm getting more and more phone calls about insurance companies not covering wind damage and not covering hail damage. And that's a problem here in North Alabama.
Yeah.
Because we got a lot of wind and we got a lot of hail, and it's going to be coming very soon.
Just because they tell you you're not covered doesn't mean just let it go.
No, and that's one thing that you could do. You can call your own expert.
Okay.
You can call your own roofing company. And I always say get more than one roofing company.
Okay.
But we're seeing it time and time again. Roofing company is called out. There's no question you have hail damage, and then it's a fight with an insurance company. Okay. So, watch that out.
We've got Herman on the line with a question or comment from Madison. Hi, Herman. Thanks for watching tonight. What's your question?
Yeah. Well, my question is, I had a leak up under my slab, my concrete slab, from Nipco Plex tubing, and I had it replaced, which cost me $8,700. Now, if a class action lawsuit has been closed on this, is there a way I can still file?
Oh, interesting.
And I'm aware of that type of tubing, piping. I'm aware of there being a problem. I'm aware of there being a class action lawsuit about that has been some significant time ago closed. I think it's a year and a half ago. I think that lawsuit you had to file your claim by. There's going to be a question, though, of whether or not you actually receive notice of the ability to opt out of that claim. And so oftentimes when you have a class action suit, then all the people who could potentially have a claim with that class action have to be sent notification that there is a class and be given a reasonable opportunity to opt out of that class. And that just simply means writing a letter, making an official statement that you are not going to abide by whatever decision of the class. If you didn't receive appropriate notice, then there could be a potential for you to have a claim. But the other thing is that there's some laws in the state of Alabama about product defects and when you discover the product defects and some time limitations you may have for those product defects, and a pipe that is known to be defective, you still have a time limitation. So my advice to you is it possible for you to circumvent that class? It's possible. But is there a potential time limitation for you? Yes, essential you contact a lawyer as soon as possible.
Talk a little bit about, there's been the recent Roundup class actions, right? Is that closed, or are you seeing people getting settlements out of that?
No, Roundup glyphosate is the chemical that's in Roundup. So glyphosate is manufactured by Monsanto, owned by the Bayer Corporation, I believe. They've had a whole bunch of claims over the years about the harmful effects of glyphosate, and particularly glyphosate if it is used significantly. So if you work on a farm or you work in landscaping and these are chemicals that you used over and over and over again, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, other types of cancer has been associated with exposure. So most recently there has been a class that has been established for these types of claims, and there has been a proposed settlement. So it has not been approved yet, which has to happen in a class to be approved by a judge, but there is some indication that the judge may approve this settlement. So there's a lot of movement with people hiring attorneys to pursue these claims for them, particularly those that have suffered from cancer and have used glyphosate products significantly.
Would you expect any of that to change? So the federal government has loosened the restrictions, right, on that chemical.
Yeah.
So does that change the civil case and these settlements?
Well, those are proposals, so a lot of that has to work through the courts, most likely. But in the event that the federal government does allow the use of glyphosate, that doesn't necessarily change the claims that folks will have against the manufacturers of glyphosate, unless the federal government says you can't sue these companies. And so the federal government can do that, state governments can do that. We're seeing some of that movement in Georgia on some other chemical cases where the state government is attempting to to limit responsibility of companies, and that's not going over very well with communities.
Get your settlement fast then.
Well, yeah, or call your legislatures.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything Night. Stay with us.
Which pays an advertising fee to this station.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call. Your rights, your calls, live. Presented by the Tennessee Valley's award-winning personal injury and wrongful death law firm, Timberlake, League & Brooks. Featuring the knowledge and experience of Attorney Michael Timberlake, Attorney Will League, Attorney Heath Brooks, Attorney William Maservi. And hosted by broadcaster and family law attorney Sharon Doviet. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back tonight. It's Ask Us Anything Night. Heath Brooks is here from Timberlake, League & Brooks. We invite you to call in and ask your questions live on the air, 256-536-0077, or text in, and we're getting text questions in. Right. Okay, so somebody had kind of a long question about a legal guardianship. Right. Somebody's got a legal guardianship. The person who's got the guardianship over another person is not able to do it anymore, and so they ask somebody else to do it, and that person writes some checks out of that account. Now they're being charged with theft of property and big issues over that. You got any advice for them?
You know, you got to be careful when the court gives, because that's what happens with a legal guardian. The court gives one person the responsibility to handle another person's affairs. This is a little different than a power of attorney. This is actually the court stepping in and saying this individual does not have the ability to handle their own affairs, and so we're going to appoint somebody else to do it. Well, when the person who's appointed can't do it anymore, is having some difficulty, the question is can they point to somebody else? You know, probably not in that scenario because that other person doesn't have the legal ability to do that. But it doesn't really rise to the level of a criminal action, I wouldn't think, until you start taking somebody else's money and using it for your own personal use. So if the guardian had asked another individual because they weren't able to write a check to pay a bill for the guardian or for the person that the guardian was over, like a power bill, that's one thing. But if somebody was writing checks out of an account that was the guardian's and the individual who's the guardian over to pay their own personal bills, that could be an issue. That could be theft of property.
Okay. We were also going to talk a little bit about springtime coming and activities around the area.
Oh, yeah.
And you sent in a couple of pictures. Tell me what we're looking at. What do you? Oh, who is this baby?
This is Roland, named after a character in a Stephen King novel.
Aww.
And we took him out this past weekend to one of our beautiful land trust properties out on Chapman Mountain.
Beautiful.
And so, you know, one of the things I was trying to show, and my mother always said this, it's called greening up. And it's like one morning you wake up and everything is green. And so everything's been greening up. And now you start to see the little flower. We saw the trillium coming out for the first time. And the maypole apples or the mayhaw apples or whatever the case may be. But the new mushrooms coming in. So everything's greening up. It's a renewal time. And then you spring forward.
Yes. Yeah. It interrupts things.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful time of the year, though. Let's talk a little bit. We got this email question in. This is from Bruce. Bruce says, I work as a carpenter restoring old homes. Many of our job sites are deteriorating and dangerous. If I'm hurt on the job because of unsafe conditions, what are my legal options? And this makes me wonder if you hire somebody to come work at your house and they get injured. Am I in trouble?
You know, there was a recent Supreme Court case involving a postal worker that came to a house that was in a bad shape. And the circuit court, the court here in Madison County, turned down any kind of claim for the postal worker who was injured. It goes all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court says, hang on just a minute. This postal worker is providing a benefit for these homeowners. And so there should be some added protection for these postal workers. Okay. At the very least, these homes should be upkept to code.
Yeah.
And so if you have somebody coming up your steps that's a postal worker and your steps aren't to code and they get hurt, you could be responsible. Same thing goes. If you hire somebody to do construction on your house and there is a defect in your house that person couldn't know about, then you could be responsible. Now, the other side of that is, if I'm doing construction on a house that's dilapidated and I'm the person that's knowledgeable about construction and I get injured myself while I'm trying to rebuild something I already knew was dilapidated, that's not going to be a claim.
Yeah.
So it really needs to be a defect that the homeowner only can know about, that person doing, like a closed up well.
Yeah.
Something like that.
If you're a roofer and the homeowner says there's a hole in the roof, can you fix it? Yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't blame them.
You can't fall through the roof and say, "Oh, I hurt my leg."
I didn't know.
No.
Got in a text question. Somebody's asking about bicycle lanes being implemented around the state. A lot of that's coming in. Are you seeing more bicycle-related accidents?
You know, we see bicycle-related accidents a lot, but I'm proud of Huntsville. That we are starting to put some bike lanes in. I think we've got one on Spraggins. We've got a joint program with the city and the Land Trust of North Alabama to build a bike accessible lane up Bankhead, which is going to be pretty exciting.
That'll be nice.
So there's a statewide program to test the viability of bike lanes statewide. Now this is let's do more research to see if we need something kind of deal, and maybe not implementation of bike lanes, but moving it forward. I think we all recognize that, you know, that it would be good to share the road with bikers and create bike lanes, particularly in cities that are growing as quickly as we are.
Yeah. Got in a text question. Somebody's saying, why do criminals get plea deals instead of prosecution? All right.
So
most cases don't go to trial, right?
No.
It probably maybe 10% of criminal cases, maybe.
You would think a lot, though. With all the law shows and things like this,
you think they're all going to trial.
Sees it.
Why do people get plea deals? Why are they offered plea deals?
There's a lot of different reasons for it. First is the time. Sometimes the state will offer a plea deal for the time and the cost to the state. Other times, if you know, it's easier for a criminal to accused criminal to accept responsibility and take a much lesser sentence because there's a risk that if they took it to a jury trial, they could get a much worse penalty. So a lot of times it's time, it's cost, and it's risk. And that's why plea deals generally are taken.
Okay. It helps everybody in a way.
It really does.
Okay. Talk to us a little bit about pools and pool safety this time of year.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting excited for opening up the pools, and if you're in a city, there are probably laws that you need to be aware of.
City or county.
Okay.
City or county. Most of the time, every city or county in the United States has adopted rules that require a full 4-foot locking fence all the way around pools. And take it seriously. Take it seriously. It's some of the worst calls I ever get where some small child has wandered into the swimming pool and mom, dad, grandmother finds that child too late. And it's almost always the same story. I thought that there were no holes in the fence, or I was trying to fix the gate and I hadn't gotten to it yet, or we have been meaning to put up that fence. But the rule is 4-foot fence around the entire swimming pool, locking gate, keep it closed. You never know what's going to happen.
So if a child, it's bad enough when it's in your own family, but if it's a neighbor's child has managed to come in, what are you looking at with the lawsuits and the things that would happen with something like that?
Well, if you don't have and I've been in that situation. Okay. If you don't have a 4-foot fence and you don't have a locking gate and a child wanders into your swimming pool and drowns, you can be responsible for negligently maintaining your pool. And that can result in all kinds of litigation. Generally, that's a homeowner's claim that is made. And it's just, they're some of the saddest situations we've seen. And unfortunately, I've seen several of them. So this is something that should be taken very seriously.
We've got Regina on the line with a question from Decatur. Hi, Regina. Thanks for calling in. What's your question tonight?
Yes, ma'am. I bought a new washer, and it when it goes into the rinse cycle, it rinses fine. No water comes out of the drain pipe or anything. They call it a standpipe. But anyway, no water comes out. But then when it goes into the spin cycle, not right at first, but I'm going to say a little after halfway because it spins a long time, I start getting suds to come back up out of the pipe. Well, suds are wet, so I'm having to take a towel and sop up the suds, and I've had 2 different plumbing companies out here, and I like $14 spending $700 for the problem, and I still have the problem.
Did you say this is a new washer, or had it been used before?
Brand new, paid almost $1,500 for it.
Are the suds coming up out of the actual, where you stick your hose in the back behind your washing machine, coming out of the actual drain pipe?
Yes, that's where the rinse water goes out. It goes out fine. But like I said, once it goes into the spin cycle, about a little after, I don't know how much, it's a while before the suds start coming back up out of my drain pipe. Well, suds are wet, so you've got to do something with them.
Are you on a septic tank, or are you directly attached to the sewer system?
To the sewer system, and I had new sewer lines put in under my house in 2017, and then they redid the sewer lines from my yard out to the road last year. And I've had the utility company to come, and they've ran their light in there, and everything is clear.
Wow.
Sounds like to me, and and this is something that it doesn't sound like a problem with your washing machine. It really doesn't, because if it's coming out of the drain pipe, then it sounds like something's going on with your drain. I suspect that you don't have the right rise and run as you're leaving your house to the sewer, which means that you have to have the right, the pipe has to drop appropriately as it leaves your house to get to the sewer line. And if it doesn't, and if you have that thick amount of sud coming through, it'll just back it all the way up. And you may be able to get by with that when you have clear water without suds in it, because it's moving quicker, but the suds may be causing it because of that rise and run.
We're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions. It's Ask Us Anything night.
Pays an advertising fee to this station.
If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Heath Brooks with Timberlake League and Brooks in Huntsville, 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com, and if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon does family law, that's divorces, child custody, and the like. She can be reached at 256-539-7337 or www.sharonfamilylaw.com.
We got in a text question. If someone dies and has nothing to go through probate, do I still have to let the court know if he's dead? That's from Ann.
Probably not.
No.
I mean, if they're bank accounts and money and cars and things like that, you got to probate it.
Okay.
But if there's nothing there, I don't think so.
Okay. Thanks for all your calls and questions, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great night.